Jack's Stack in Martin City smells like hickory and brown sugar. Sunday night families fill the booths, the Chiefs game rolls on mute. I booked the small room and back for its bright, honest light. We ordered ahead burnt ends, cheesy corn coleslaw, sweet tea. I told the hostess it was a family dinner. I didn't say what kind. I'm Ray McKenna, 68. I started as a lineman, built Heartland Utility and Fiber, then sold most of it to folks who climb poles with me. People say I'm worth $85 million. We were 10 around the table, my son Brad, 39, my daughter Haley, 36, my adopted girl Naomi, 30, an ICU nurse, 2 grandkids coloring, Pastor Joe, neighbor Earl, my foreman Luis, and a gray-suited lawyer named Craig Ellison. Brad invited Craig to avoid confusion later. Folks use that phrase when they want to hurry you now. The waiter set down a platter of burnt ends. I stood because the chair felt too small for what needed doing. For 2 weeks, I'd let them think I didn't remember what day it was. I mixed up names, pretended to lose my readers, asked how to turn on the TV I've owned for 6 years. That night, I didn't pretend. Before we say grace, I said we'll handle paperwork, but not yours. Brad blinked. Haley's smile tightened. Craig kept his face smooth. Naomi poured tea and asked Lemon Dad. I slid a manila folder to Craig. He opened it. First page, dates and times, conversations about Dad's capacity. Next page, a letter from Dr. Patel at KU Med. 3 lines mattered. Ray McKenna is fully oriented and competent to make medical and financial decisions. Craig read those words twice. He turned the page. E3. Affidavits. A notary stamp from the UPS store on 135th. A thumb drive labeled front door cam 64612. He looked up. You recorded us. I was there, I said. Missouri's one-party consent. Same for Kansas when I'm across the line. Earl coughed. Pastor Joe folded his hands. Luis studied the meat like he wasn't sure we were still allowed to eat. Brad tried to laugh. Dad, this is theatrical. We brought Craig so we can keep things simple. You had a scare. We need to streamline. Streamline, I said. That's the word you used when you told Naomi to park my pill cart by the recliner, so I'd be sleepy for signing. Haley leaned in. No one's trying to hurt you, Dad. We're protecting you. You forget things. Everyone forgets things, I said. I forget where I set my keys. You forgot I kept lights on from Topeka to Joplin. I forget what channel the Royals are on. You forgot that showing up twice with a notary and a stack of tabs doesn't look like love. The waiter brought cheesy corn. Pastor Joe said we could use some grace, and the kid nodded. Craig took a breath. Mr. McKenna, the intent is to reduce confusion if your condition progresses. These are standard springing powers and a transfer on death deed to your daughter for the lake house. We recommend. I held up a hand. You recommend a lot. Read page 9. He turned to it, the bar complaint draft. 2 quotations in bold from his own voice on the audio. Keep him talking. If he drifts, we proceed anyway. Haley went pale. Brad stared at the TV where a kickoff froze on the tee. Naomi touched my forearm once steady. Dad, Brad said softly, let's not do this in front of everyone. In front of who, I asked. The pastor who sat with me in cardiology, the neighbor who picked me up at midnight, the foreman who had me on a pole at 2 a.m. in '93, or Naomi who changed my dressings and brought soup when no one else remembered. I don't like hospital jello. No one answered. The platter cooled. I sat because a man can say harder things from a chair. The room smelled like smoke and oak. I thought about storms. We'd work the way you plant your boots and keep doing the next right thing until the light comes back. Here's how this goes, I said. We bless the meal and eat it. Then I'll walk you through a few items so there's no more confusion. And before that, I'm going to thank Naomi for showing up when there was nothing to sign. Naomi shook her head. It's just dinner, Dad. It's where families remember who they are, I said. Craig closed the folder and tried to slide it back. I tapped it so it stayed. His voice was smaller. If you've already executed documents with other counsel, perhaps we should reschedule. We're not rescheduling, I said. Not tonight. Pastor Joe cleared his throat. Ray want me to say grace. I will, I said. Lord, thank you for the food and the hands that made it. Thank you for the work you gave me and the rest you've offered now. And thank you for truth which cleans better than sauce, even if it stings. I lifted my head. Amen. I took a sip of tea and set the glass down so it made a ring on the wood. Let's back up a couple of weeks, I said, so you understand how we got here. Craig didn't touch his food. His face had the color of unbaked dough. He looked like a man who just learned the generator he sold wasn't wired to the panel. Frozen, that's what my grandkids call a video that won't move. The lawyer was frozen. I like mornings slow. Always have. The house is a brick ranch on a quiet street in Overland Park, Kansas. I've been here 25 years. Same cracked driveway, same oak in the front yard, same neighbor Earl shuffling by with his beagle. At 68, you don't change habits just because your bank account got fat. Coffee pot clicks at 6. Folgers, nothing fancy. I spoon sugar into a chipped Royals mug. Porch light still on when I step outside for the paper. The Kansas City Star feels thinner than it used to, but I still read the sports section. Earl waves from the sidewalk. Morning, Ray. His beagle pulls toward my mailbox, same as yesterday. People think 85 million changes everything. I sold most of Heartland Utility and Fiber to the employees 4 years back. My phone lit up with congratulations, handshakes at Rotary, pats on the back at church. But I still drive the old F-150, still buy nails from the True Value, still sit in the same pew at St. Michael's. When the furnace hiccups, I crawl down and check it myself. Money doesn't make a man, it just gives you options. My family sees it different. Brad, my oldest, talks like a PowerPoint, lives in San Francisco tech sales, shiny suits, calls me father on the phone like we're in a board meeting. He's 39, but looks at me like I'm a project to be managed. Haley, my daughter, is 36, lives in Dallas. Realtor, influencer, ring light in every room. She says dad, but what she means is brand. Likes to post throwback photos of me in a hard hat with captions like legacy goals. Neither of them remembers the smell of creosote on gloves after a 12-hour shift. Naomi remembers. She's not blood. I signed papers when she was 12, brought her home from foster care after a church drive. She's 30 now, ICU nurse at KU Med. She shows up with chicken noodle soup and fixes my pill organizer without fuss. Checks the tires on the truck, drives me to checkups. She doesn't talk about assets or brands. She says, Dad, you hungry? That's worth more than a trust fund. 3 weeks ago, I scared them. Mini stroke, they called it a TIA. I was in KU Med overnight, hooked to monitors, nurses, checking vitals every hour. Naomi stayed in the chair beside the bed, hair pulled back, chart open on her lap. Brad and Haley flew in loud in the hallway, talking over me like I wasn't there. We need a plan before he declines, Brad said. The estate has to be streamlined. Haley nodded like she was nodding at a Zoom call. I closed my eyes and let them talk. Dr. Patel said I was fine. No damage, just a warning to eat less salt and keep walking the block. But the way Brad and Haley whispered with that lawyer in the waiting area stuck with me. They didn't ask what I wanted. They asked each other how fast papers could be drawn. I've seen storms rip lines down across 3 counties. I know the sound of something dangerous before it hits. So I called my attorney, Eleanor Price. She's been with me since the first company truck. Straight shooter. I said, Ellie, I want to test my kids. See what they reach for when they think I'm slipping. She didn't like it. Ray, pretending memory loss is risky. They could file for guardianship. Then we'll be ready, I said. I called Mike Rafferty, my CPA, same golf league. He agreed to monitor the accounts. Both of them uneasy, but they know me. When I set a poll, it stays set. The plan was simple. I'd act foggy for 2 weeks, nothing dramatic, just enough to give Brad and Haley rope. Misplace my readers. Ask what day it is twice. Forget the royal score. Put the coffee pot in the fridge. Naomi raised an eyebrow, but I told her. She didn't like it either. Dad, you're asking for trouble. Sometimes trouble brings the truth, I said. She sighed, but she stayed close. It didn't take long. Day 3 home, Brad texted me a calendar link. Dad, Craig, our attorney, will stop by Tuesday. Bring your ID. Just standard forms. Standard forms. I laughed into my coffee. Haley called the same night, Dad. These are just to keep things smooth. Nothing to worry about. Her tone was too sweet, like a realtor describing black mold as charming character. That Saturday, Naomi and I went to Hy-Vee. She pushed the cart, grabbed carrots, yogurt cups for her shifts. I picked out ribeyes for the grill. Normal. In the aisle with the peanut butter, she said, You really going through with this? I nodded. You'll be there when they come, always, she said. That word hit harder than any contract. Back home, I set the stage. Old files on the desk, tax folders half open, Phone left in plain sight. I knew they'd look. Folks who chase signatures never miss a prop. I even left my car keys on the counter. Later, I found them hidden under magazines. Brad's idea of safety, mine of control. Sunday came with a text. Dad, Craig wants to finalize things Tuesday morning. We'll bring the notary. I showed Naomi. She shook her head. They're not even subtle. I smiled. That's the point. I watered the lawn, waved to Earl, sat on the porch with the star. Life looked the same. Only difference was inside the house, the air carried a charge. I'd worked storms where the sky went green before a tornado. Same feeling now. Calm, heavy, waiting to split. I thought about the rules we live by on the lines. Don't trust what you can't test. Don't touch a wire until you know it's dead. Don't climb without a belt. And never ever assume family will hold when the wind hits. You test it. You put weight on it. You find out. Tuesday was coming. They thought they were walking into a signing. I knew it was a test. Tuesday came in neat shoes and a briefcase. They were 10 minutes early. I watched the doorbell camera blink to life on my phone and let it ring twice before I opened up. Brad stood on the porch in a navy blazer, Haley in a white blouse with buttons like pearls, and behind them a lean man about my age with a case and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. A young woman in a cardigan held a tote with a notary stamp kit. Morning, Dad, Brad said, bright as a weatherman. This is Craig Ellison, and Shelby's our notary mobile service. Super convenient. Come on in, I said. Wipe your feet, carpet's new. Naomi had the kettle going. She wore Scrub's hair and a knot badge clipped to her pocket from the night shift. Coffee, tea, she asked. We're good, Haley said, already looking at the mantel. Family pictures live there. She checked frames like she was staging a listing. Her gaze stuck a beat too long on the photo from Table Rock Lake, the dock, the pontoon, the grandkids with life vests too big for them. Craig put his case on the dining table. Mr. McKenna will keep this simple. These are standard springing powers and a few updates to your estate plan in line with best practices given your recent health scare. Health scare, I repeated as if trying the words on. Is it Tuesday? Tuesday, Naomi said. She took my Royals cap off the chair, set it on the coat tree, and squeezed my shoulder like a reminder that I wasn't alone. Shelby the notary laid out pens with blue caps and little post-it flags like confetti. We'll need a state ID, she sang like reading a menu. Unexpired. I patted my pockets, patted them again, looked toward the kitchen. Must be with my readers. Naomi drifted that way. I heard the soft click of the junk drawer and the small thunk of my battered wallet. She came back with both. Here you go, Dad. Craig smiled at her. Thanks, Naomi. She didn't smile back. We'll read every page. He opened the first binder. The top sheet said, Durable Power of Attorney, in a font that liked itself too much. Brad tapped the margin with a finger. This one lets me handle things if you're having one of those foggy days. Just sign here, here, here. Foggy days, I said. Like when the Royals are up 3 and I think they'll hold. Exactly, Brad said, missing the joke. It's for your protection. Haley leaned in with that voice she uses on clients. We just want to make sure no one takes advantage, Dad. There are scammers, predators. I looked at Craig. You a predator, Craig. He chuckled. I bill by the hour, Mr. McKenna. Some might say that's close. Naomi slid a coaster under his water glass. I put on my readers. The room narrowed to paper and ink and the slow tick of the kitchen clock. The POA had more verbs than a sermon grant, assign, convey, authorize, constitute. I asked what's Clause 10 mean without notice or consent of the principal, that me, Craig cleared his throat. That's standard. It activates when necessary. Shelby can notarize today, and it'll spring into effect when a physician certifies. Which physician, I asked. Any licensed physician, he said. Mine's Patel, I said. We'll use Patel if we use anyone. Of course, he said, smiling again, like a man trying to sell me siding. Naomi brought tea. She set my mug where my hand would find it. You don't have to sign anything today, she said quietly. We can review this with Eleanor. Haley's smile flickered. Oh, we looped in a different firm. Dad's current attorney is old school. Like me, I said. Shelby clicked her stamp case, opened the noise like a frog in a pond. Craig turned a tabbed page. This one is a transfer on death deed for the Table Rock property, purely to avoid probate. Saves the estate money. Who gets the doc, I asked. The doc is included, he said. And who gets the house? Your daughter, he said, nodding to Haley. Cleaner to keep residences in single lines. Haley stared at the page like she could already smell lake water. It'll be easy, Dad. We'll keep it in the family. Like a garage sale, I said. Brad slid a pen toward my right hand. This is a formality. Sign here, initial there. Where's the summary, I asked. Plain English. Craig lifted his chin. We can walk you through. Plain English, I said again. He looked at Brad and Haley. We'd be happy to produce a memo. Good, I said, and pushed the binder back an inch. When Naomi reads and Patel blesses, we'll see. I tried to rise and let the chair legs squeal a little the way a man might who'd been napping. What day is it again? Tuesday, Naomi said and gave me a look that meant, you're pushing it, but I'm here. Brad exhaled. Dad, you're making this harder than it has to be. Hard things build strong towers, I said. We built a few. Shelby glanced at the clock. I have another appointment at 11. Craig's smile thinned. Mr. McKenna, perhaps we circle back Friday. Maybe, I said. They gathered up the papers softer than they'd laid them down. But on the mantel, Haley paused again at Table Rock. We can have it ready for the 4th, she murmured to Brad. List it by June if we... Naomi's head turned. Her face did not. After they left, Naomi put the kettle back on. She didn't ask how I felt. She'd watched enough families to know the body feels things later. You got all that she asked, meaning more than my eyes had taken in. Doorbell cam, I said. I lifted the little thumb drive I'd palmed when I opened the door. And the kitchen audio. Picked up list by June. She nodded. They'll be back. They said Friday. They'll come sooner, she said. They did. Friday arrived with rain, and so did the navy blazer. This time Craig's tie was tighter, and he brought fewer smiles. Haley wore a blazer too, and the kind of heels that sound like decisions. Shelby, the notary, trailed frowning at the weather. Let's do this at the table, Craig said, not asking. He had a second binder, thinner, meaner. We simplified. This language is cleaner, a physician threshold as you requested, and we've included a caregiver allowance for Naomi. Naomi blinked. I didn't ask for that. Of course not, Craig said. We think ahead. I opened the thin binder. The allowance was a line item with a number that felt like a tip. The POA still swept the board. The TOD deed still drifted to Haley. There were new tabs, new flags, and new page 4 that Brad slid toward me like a check at a steakhouse. Sign here, he said. Just the POA for now. We'll do the rest later. I found my readers took my time, set them down again. What's the rush, I asked. So you don't have to worry, Haley said. We'll handle the bank app, the taxes, the lake stuff. You just rest. Rest, I said. Is that what you call going quiet? Craig leaned in. Mr. McKenna, you had a TIA. You're vulnerable. Naomi's voice cut him off soft, but like a wire under tension. He's competent. Dr. Patel said so. Craig's eyes flicked. We can get another opinion. We won't, I said. Shelby checked the time again. I really have to. We'll be fast, Brad said. He put the pen in my hand. His fingers closed over mine. I let them for a breath. I let him feel what he thought was control. Then I turned the page back slow. Clause 12, I said, tapping. You keep burying it. Agent may make gifts to himself or herself. That your idea, Craig, or my children's. The room went quiet like when power dies and the refrigerator hum stops and you hear your own breath. Craig licked his lip. It's standard in some. Not in my house, I said. Haley's cheeks colored. Dad, you're being dramatic. We're protecting you from guardianship. If you can't sign, a judge can appoint someone who will. That's what Craig said. Naomi looked at me. We had the thing we needed. Shelby, I said, turning to the notary. You from around here? Belton, she said, surprised. Grew up off 58. You know what happens in a storm, I asked. Folks show up with chainsaws and standard forms. Some help themselves. I closed the binder and pushed it back. We're done for today. Craig stood. Then we'll proceed another way. Brad gathered his jaw off the floor. We care about you. I can tell, I said. I can always tell by who shows up when there's nothing to sign. They left faster the second time. Naomi watched the door close. The rain stopped like someone turned off a hose. She picked up the pen Brad had tried to press into my hand. We'll need witnesses, she said. People who saw and heard. Pastor Joe, I said. Earl. Kendra from Home Health. Louise. She nodded, already making a list. And you'll see Eleanor. Tomorrow, I said. Time to put this in daylight. I took the thumb drive from the doorbell cam and set it next to the audio recorder in the bowl where I keep my keys. The keys had wandered since Tuesday. I found them under a magazine with a San Francisco skyline on the cover. Funny, I said. Not really, Naomi said. They're scared you'll drive yourself. Scared I'll drive this, I said, tapping the binder. She smiled, then small, tired, proud. You will. Not alone, I said. Never, she said. We stood a second in the quiet house, listening to the fridge hum and the clock tick, the ordinary sounds you miss when people are talking too loud. The storm had passed for the moment. You learn to rest between squalls. You drink your coffee while it's hot. You make your calls. You invite people to dinner. Sunday, I said. Sunday, Naomi said. I'll bring pie. Sunday felt heavier than the forecast. I called Eleanor Price that morning. She's been my attorney since the first company pickup. She met me at the office she keeps above a State Farm branch in Lenexa. Same oak desk, same fountain pen she's had since law school. You're certain, she asked after I laid it out. Brad Haley, the 2 visits the notary, the binder with the TOD deed. Certain, I said. They're not waiting for decline. They're pushing me into it. She tapped the pen against her pad. Then we need to lock your side down. Competency evaluation, fresh trust amendment witnesses, and a no contest clause. She phoned Dr. Patel. I was in his office by noon. Blood pressure, reflexes, questions about who the president was, what day it was, the name of his nurse. I passed fine. He shook my hand. You're sharper than half my residents. He typed a letter, signed it, sealed it. That page would matter more than any signature. Brad waved under my nose. Mike Rafferty, my CPA, drafted numbers to show where money would flow. Most to the McKenna Foundation scholarships for linemen's kids, housing for foster youth aging out of the system, education funds for each grandchild with Naomi as trustee, smaller set-asides for Brad and Haley, enough to cover mortgages if they wanted, but tied to conditions, no contest. Contest it, you forfeit. Simple. Eleanor slid the amendment into a new binder, thick and clean. She looked at me. You're making a statement, Ray. They won't like it. Good, I said. Liking isn't the goal. Truth is. We added one more piece, a draft grievance to the Missouri bar with Craig's name on top. Every quote pulled straight from my recorder. I wasn't bluffing. If he tried again, the board would see it all. Back home, Naomi came in from a night shift. She dropped her bag, kicked off her sneakers, and looked at the paperwork spread on the table. That's a lot of paper, Dad. Paper keeps the lights on, I said. This one's not for polls, it's for people. She sat, poured cereal. You want me at this dinner? I need you there, I said. Not just for me, for them, to see what it looks like when someone shows up without a contract. She stirred the spoon. Brad and Haley won't like me there. They already don't, I said. You earned your seat, more than most. She smiled, tired hair falling loose. Then I'll bring pie. I made calls that afternoon. Earl from next door. Pastor Joe from St. Michael's. Kendra, the home health nurse. Luis, my old foreman. I told them straight, I'd like you at dinner. I want eyes on this. None hesitated. Folks who've worked storms don't turn down a call. I sent the group text. Family dinner Sunday at Jack Stack. We'll finalize Dad's wishes together. Haley replied with a heart emoji and can't wait. Brad added Craig will join to keep things clear. Clear, another word for control. Naomi and I hit Hy-Vee Saturday. She tossed apples into a bag, yogurt into the cart. I picked out 2 pies, apple and pecan. She wrinkled her nose. They'll be full from barbecue. They won't be full of this, I said. She laughed. Driving home, I slid my old F-150 keys into her palm at a red light. This truck's got another 100,000 miles. You need it more than I do. She shook her head. Dad? Don't argue, I said. You drive me half the places anyway. Call it fair trade. She pressed the keys into her pocket. Didn't cry. Nurses don't waste tears on gifts. That night, I sat on the porch, royals on the radio, cicadas starting up in the trees. I thought about my wife gone 10 years. She'd have laughed at how predictable the kids turned out. Brad chasing status, Haley chasing shine. She would have smiled at Naomi, steady as a rock soup on the stove, before I asked. Storm clouds drifted east. Porch light glowed against the dark. I patted the manila folder on my lap, fat with affidavits, Patel's letter, and the trust amendment. In my pocket, the thumb drive from the doorbell cam clicked against my keys. Sunday would come soon enough. Brad came early, just like I knew he would. He liked to shape a room before it filled. The private space at Jack's Stack smelled of hickory and brown sugar. Long table iced tea sweating in pitchers. I'd asked the hostess to set extra chairs, one for Pastor Joe, one for Earl, one for Kendra, one for Luis. Neutralize. Brad slipped his blazer over the chair at my right. Daddy said arranging forks like he owned the place. Let's keep this smooth. Craig will walk us through 15 minutes tops. Smooth, I said, like black ice. Haley swept in with perfume that stuck to the curtains. White blouse folder tucked under her arm like a prize. Dad, you look good, she sang. She didn't ask how I felt. She slid into the chair across from me, folder under napkin lips tight. Naomi came in last scrubs traded for a blue sweater. She kissed my cheek, set her purse down by my chair, poured me sweet tea before sitting at the far end Brad's design. But her eyes never left me. Craig straightened his tie and laid out papers. Mr. McKenna will just finalize signatures tonight. Clean things up for you. I squinted at the page, confusion later. Is it Thursday? Naomi smiled gently. Sunday, Dad. Haley whispered to Brad, not quiet enough. Just get him to sign page 4? Pastor Joe cleared his throat, eyeing the platter of burnt ends. We'll say grace when it's time. Craig pushed a paper toward me. Here's the deed for the Table Rock property. This avoids probate headaches. Brad guided my hand with the pen. Just here, Dad. No fuss. Naomi's voice cut soft but clear. He can read it at his pace. I slid the papers back, straightened them. We'll do this in the daylight. Craig tried again. These are simple safeguards. Safeguards, I said. Clause 12 says, agent may make gifts to himself. That your idea, Craig? Haley stiffened. Dad, we're protecting you. Protection looks different when it comes with dollar signs. Brad forced a smile. We care about you. I set the pen down. The room was heavy sauce, sweet in the air. Naomi cut my brisket for me steady hands. Luis nodded at me like a man on a pole in wind waiting for a signal. Craig tried to recover. Mr. McKenna, let's not complicate matters. Too late, I said. Folks will eat. Then I'll show you something. No more shadows. Haley's hand shook as she poured tea. Brad chewed his lip. Craig's jaw flexed. The witnesses sat quiet but watchful eyes taking it all in. I looked around the table at grandkids coloring at Naomi's calm, at Brad's restless fingers, at Haley's forced smile. I'd been through ice storms that took every line down for miles. This felt the same, the quiet, before the lights came back. I raised my glass. To family dinners, I said. The kind where we remember who we are. Earl clinked his water glass. Here, here. Naomi's eyes met mine. She nodded. She knew what was coming. I didn't plan to make a speech, but sometimes a man has to flip the breaker in front of everyone. I pushed my chair back and stood. The room went quiet except for the muted roar of the Chiefs game drifting through the wall. First, I said, let's roll some tape. Naomi pulled the remote from her purse. The flat screen in the corner lit up. Grainy footage from my own front porch, Haley at the door whispering, once the deed's done, list it by June. Brad's face drained. Haley shook her head fast, like maybe if she denied hard enough, the words would vanish. Next clip, audio from the kitchen. Craig's voice clear as day, keep him talking. If he drifts, we proceed anyway. Craig froze, his fork slipped. Pastor Joe crossed his arms. Earl muttered, well, I'll be... I reached into the manila folder, pulled out a sealed envelope, slid it across the table. Letter from Dr. Patel. Says I'm competent, fully oriented, capable of making decisions. Craig didn't touch it. He didn't have to. Everyone else did. Haley tried for soft. Dad, that was out of context. The context, I said, was my kitchen. Brad leaned forward, palms open. We were scared. We didn't want guardianship battles. We wanted to protect you. Kendra, the nurse, spoke up for the first time. Protecting doesn't look like hiding a man's car keys or asking me to leave meds loose so he's drowsy. That's not care. That's pressure. Haley's face went crimson. Brad started to argue but swallowed it. I pulled out the trust amendment, laid it flat. Here's how it stands. The McKenna Foundation gets the bulk lineman scholarships, foster housing in Wyandotte County. Naomi's trustee. Grandkids' college is covered. You two have small bequests. And a no contest clause. Challenge it and you get nothing. Luis nodded slow like a man approving a poll placement. That's steady, he said. I handed another envelope to Craig. Draft grievance. Missouri bar. Every quote, every date. If you ever file papers on my behalf again without me present, that draft goes live. Craig's hand hovered, then dropped. His face went the color of wet cement, frozen. Haley's voice broke. Dad, you'd cut us out, your own children. You cut yourselves out when you showed up twice with pens and no questions about soup or walks or royal scores. Brad tried one last play. We can fix this. We can rewrite. No, I said. We're done rewriting. We're living it. I looked down the table at Naomi. She had tears in her eyes, but her chin was high. She showed up when there was nothing to sign, I said. That's who carries my name. The silence was heavier than the brisket. Craig couldn't move. Haley stared at the floor. Brad drummed fingers that found no rhythm. I sat, took a bite of burnt ends, sweet smoky real. Now I said, let's eat. The days after felt quieter, like the air after a storm, when the last branch stops creaking. Craig never called again. A week later, Eleanor slid a letter across her desk, his firm withdrawing representation. The grievance draft stayed in my drawer, stamped but unsent. Sometimes the shadow is enough. Brad sent one email. Short. We'll review our options. Eleanor answered with the no contest clause. He hasn't written since. Haley tried a softer angle text with heart emojis, photos of the grandkids at soccer. I replied once, your children's tuition is safe. That's my promise. The rest is up to you. She left it at that. Naomi kept showing up. Tuesday nights she brought chili, Thursdays she hauled me to Rotary. Sundays we grilled. She parked the F-150 in my driveway like it belonged there because it did. She handled trust papers, with Eleanor paid bills, kept receipts neat in a folder. She never bragged, she just did. 2 months later, we cut the ribbon on Naomi House, a small brick complex in Wyandotte County. Apartments for foster kids, aging out, furnished with donations, staffed with mentors. The mayor gave a speech. I gave keys to a boy named Darren, who'd never had his own room. He grinned so wide I thought my chest would split. Luis came by that night, sat on my porch. You did right, he said. Storm's over, but the lights you set will stay on. Pastor Joe shook my hand at church. Sometimes truth hurts, but it heals too, he said. Kendra still stops in with cookies. Earl waves every morning, Beagle sniffing the oak. Life looks the same to most folks, but inside my house the air's lighter. I think about Brad and Haley. I don't hate them. I don't love what they did, but hate won't change it. I left them a path back, not to money, but to my table. Show up, I told them. Volunteer at Naomi House. Call before you come, but come. That's how you get back in. I don't know if they will. That's their storm to face. I mow my lawn, drink coffee on the porch. Royals still lose more than they win, but I've got peace. At 68, with more money than I'll ever spend, I learned the one truth that doesn't come with commas or zeros, who stays when there's nothing to sign.